Take a deep breath and listen to what I have to say to you now. Pause for just a moment and let your heart settle. Life can feel overwhelming, can it? The weight of responsibilities, the pressure to succeed, the fear of failure, it all piles up until it feels like you're carrying the world on your shoulders. And in those moments when everything seems chaotic, it's easy to wonder if anyone is truly in control. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like the story of your life is being written by someone else, or worse, that there's no author at all? Maybe you've looked around and thought, this isn't how my life was supposed to turn out. You had dreams once, plans, hopes. But somewhere along the way, things didn't go as expected. And now here you are wondering if there's any purpose left in the pages of your story. But what if I told you that there is an author and he hasn't stopped writing yet? What if I told you that every twist, every turn, every challenge you face has meaning because it's part of a greater narrative? A narrative crafted by someone who loves you more than you could ever imagine? You see, too often we think of our lives as random events strung together like scattered puzzle pieces that don't quite fit. We look at the chaos and assume there's no bigger picture. But friends, God doesn't do random. Every detail of your life is intentional, even the ones that hurt, even the ones that make no sense right now. Think about it this way. When an artist paints a masterpiece, they don't start with perfection. They begin with rough strokes, blending colors, adding layers. From a distance, it might look messy, unfinished, but step back far enough and you'll see the beauty taking shape. That's exactly what God is doing in your life today in 2025. And here's the most incredible part. God isn't just painting your portrait, He's writing your story. Each chapter, each sentence, each word is carefully chosen. He knows where the plot needs tension, where it needs resolution, and where it needs grace. Because He's not just the author, He's also the hero of the story. So why does it feel so hard sometimes? Why do we struggle to trust that God is still writing when everything around us feels uncertain? Well, let me tell you something honest. It's because we live in a world that tells us to take control. Society whispers, figure it out yourself, while fear shouts, you're on your own. But both are lies. The truth is, God invites us to partner with Him not to write our own stories, but to trust His pen, to surrender the broken drafts and let Him rewrite them into something extraordinary. And here's the thing. This invitation isn't just for some people. It's for you, right here, right now. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, Pastor, I've made too many mistakes. My story is too far gone. Let me stop you right there. Do you know what makes a great story? Redemption, transformation, overcoming odds. Those aren't signs of failure. They're ingredients for victory. And guess what? God specializes in turning messes into miracles. So today, I want to remind you of something powerful. Don't worry. God is writing your story in 2025. No matter where you find yourself, whether you're celebrating victories or navigating valleys, you are not forgotten. Your story isn't over. In fact, it's just getting started. And that brings us to the urgency of this moment. If God is writing your story, then how will you respond? Will you keep trying to grab the pen and scribble your own version? Or will you surrender and let Him guide the narrative? Friends, the choice you make today will shape everything that comes next. So lean in close and hear these words clearly. God is still writing. And in 2025, He's inviting you to trust Him with the next chapter. Are you ready to say yes? Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with your mind racing? Thoughts swirling like a storm, replaying every mistake, every missed opportunity, every fear about what's coming next. It's exhausting, isn't it? That heavy feeling in your chest, the knot in your stomach, it's not just stress, it's the weight of carrying a story you feel like you can't control. Why does it feel this way? Why do we spend so much energy trying to predict the future or fix the past? Deep down, we all want certainty. We crave knowing that everything will work out okay. But instead of finding peace, we often find ourselves stuck in a cycle of worry. And the more we try to take charge, the tighter the grip of anxiety becomes. Here's the hard truth. Worry doesn't just affect our minds, it steals our joy. It robs us of the present moment and blinds us to the beauty right in front of us. Think about it. How many sunsets have you missed because you were too busy worrying about tomorrow? How many conversations have you half-heartedly participated in because your thoughts were elsewhere? Worry isn't just a mental battle, it's a thief of life. But let's go deeper. What happens when we allow worry to take root in our hearts? When we constantly question whether God is really in control? The danger is that we begin to doubt His goodness. We start believing lies that He's forgotten us, that He doesn't care, or worse, that He isn't capable of handling our problems. And once doubt takes hold, it becomes harder to trust. Have you ever noticed how worry tricks us into thinking we're being productive? We tell ourselves, if I just think through every possible scenario, I'll be prepared. But the reality is no amount of overthinking can guarantee a perfect outcome. All it does is leave us drained and defeated. It's like spinning your wheels in the mud. You're working hard, but you're not going anywhere. And here's the kicker. Worry doesn't just harm us individually, it spills over into our relationships. When we're consumed by fear, we become irritable, distant, even selfish. We snap at loved ones, withdraw from community, and isolate ourselves. Fear has a way of making us forget that we're not meant to carry these burdens alone. So why do we keep doing it? Why do we cling to worry even though we know it doesn't help? Maybe it's because worry feels familiar. It's comfortable in a strange way. At least when we're worrying, we feel like we're doing something. But friends, staying stuck in worry is like standing on the edge of a cliff, afraid to jump into the safety net below. What if I told you that worry isn't just a bad habit, it's a spiritual issue? It's a sign that we've taken our eyes off God and placed them squarely on ourselves. We've forgotten that He's the one holding the pen. We've forgotten that He sees the beginning from the end. And in forgetting, we've allowed fear to take His place. The Bible warns us about this. Jesus Himself said, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." Those words weren't spoken lightly. They were a lifeline thrown to people drowning in fear, a reminder that God is bigger than anything we could possibly face. Yet how often do we ignore that lifeline and try to swim against the current on our own? The longer we ignore the problem, the deeper the roots of worry grow. It starts as a small seed of fleeting thought, a nagging concern, but left unchecked, it becomes a tree that overshadows every area of our lives. Before we know it, worry isn't just something we feel, it's who we are. And that's a dangerous place to be. But here's the good news. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to let worry define your story. There's another way, a better way, a way that leads to freedom, peace, and purpose. But first, you have to acknowledge the problem. You have to admit that worry isn't working. Are you ready to take that step today? Let me introduce you to the antidote to worry: surrender. Not surrender in the sense of giving up, but surrender in the sense of handing over control to the one who knows best. It's not about passivity. It's about partnership. God doesn't ask us to sit back and do nothing. He invites us to trust Him while we take steps of faith. And that starts with understanding 3 key spiritual principles that can transform your perspective. The first principle is this: trust His timing. God operates on a different clock than we do. What feels like a delay to us might actually be preparation in disguise. Remember the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis? He was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned for years. But through it all, God was working behind the scenes, setting the stage for Joseph to save an entire nation. The second book of Peter, chapter 3, verse 8 reminds us, with the Lord a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. God's delays are never denials. They're divine appointments waiting to happen. The second principle is lean into gratitude. Gratitude has a way of shifting our focus from what's wrong to what's right. When we thank God for what He's already done, we open our hearts to see what He's still doing. Philippians 4-6 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. Even in the hardest moments, there's always something to be thankful for. Start small. Thank Him for the air in your lungs, the roof over your head, the people who love you. Watch how gratitude begins to rewrite your story. The third principle is walk by faith, not by sight. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest. You can't see the path ahead, but you know there's light on the other side. That's faith. It's choosing to move forward even when the way isn't clear. Hebrews 11:1 tells us, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Faith doesn't eliminate uncertainty, but it gives us the courage to keep going. It reminds us that God is leading even when we can't see His hand. Now let's talk about practical application. How do these principles play out in real life? Let's say you're facing a financial struggle. Instead of spiraling into worry, start by trusting God's timing. He knows your needs before you even ask. Next, lean into gratitude. Thank Him for the resources you do have, no matter how small. Finally, walk by faith. Take one step at a time, whether that's creating a budget, seeking wise counsel, or simply praying for provision. Each action declares your trust in God's plan. Here's another example. Maybe you're dealing with a strained relationship. Trust God's timing by believing that healing is possible, even if it doesn't happen overnight. Lean into gratitude by thanking God for the lessons you're learning, even in the pain. Walk by faith by initiating reconciliation, even if it feels risky. Faith isn't about waiting for God to act, it's about partnering with Him as He works. Let me share a powerful analogy. Think of your life as a tapestry. From the underside, all you see are tangled threads, messy, chaotic, confusing. But from above, the weaver sees the beautiful design taking shape. Every thread has a purpose, even the ones that seem out of place. Your job isn't to untangle the threads, it's to trust the weaver. That's what faith looks like in action. Friends, I want to leave you with this encouragement. You don't have to figure everything out on your own. God didn't design you to carry the weight of the world. He wants to shoulder your burdens and guide your steps. So today, make a decision to let go of the things you can't control. Surrender them to Him, one by one. And here's the beauty of it all. When you surrender, you create space for miracles. Miracles of provision, miracles of healing, miracles of restoration. God specializes in doing the impossible, but He often waits for us to take the first step of faith. Will you take that step today? Finally, let me remind you of this truth. Faith isn't a one-time event, it's a daily choice. Every morning you wake up with a decision to make. Will you trust God with today? Will you believe that He's writing your story even when it feels uncertain? Choose faith, choose gratitude, choose trust, and watch as God turns your worries into wonders. Let me speak directly to your heart for a moment. Close your eyes if you need to. Think about the moments in your life when everything felt like it was falling apart, the times when the ground beneath you seemed to crumble, leaving you standing on shaky legs. Those 3 seconds before you remember and everything starts to hurt again, that's where God meets you. Not in the perfection, not in the victory, but in the raw, messy, broken places of your soul. Here's what I want you to hear loud and clear. You are not alone. No matter how heavy the burden feels, no matter how dark the night seems, God is with you. He's closer than your next breath, holding you together when you feel like you're falling apart. The Bible says in Isaiah 41:10, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Can you feel that promise wrapping around you right now? But let's get real for a second. Faith isn't always easy. Trusting God doesn't mean life suddenly becomes smooth sailing. Sometimes it means walking through fire. Sometimes it means staring down giants. Remember David? He didn't defeat Goliath because he had superior strength or weapons. He won because he trusted that God was bigger than any giant. And guess what? The same God who fought for David fights for you today. I know it's hard to believe sometimes, especially when the storms rage and the waves crash over you. But here's the truth. God uses those storms to shape you into who He's called you to be. Like sandpaper smoothing rough edges, every challenge you face is refining your character, strengthening your faith, and preparing you for the purpose He has planned. It's painful, yes, but it's also purposeful. Now, let me ask you something bold. Are you ready to trade your fears for faith, to exchange your doubts for declarations of trust? Because here's the thing, fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. When you choose faith, you push fear out. When you declare, God, I trust you, you take back the power that worry has stolen from you. Imagine this. What if instead of dreading the unknown, you started anticipating it? What if instead of fearing failure, you embraced the adventure of trusting God? Friends, God isn't just writing a story, He's crafting an epic. And you're the hero of your own journey. Every trial, every triumph, every tear, it's all part of His grand design. And here's the most beautiful part. The best chapters haven't been written yet. In 2025, God is preparing something extraordinary for you. Something so far beyond what you could ask or imagine. Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us." That power isn't reserved for someone else. It's alive and active in you. So I want to invite you to stand up right now wherever you are. Stand up and say this prayer with me. God, I release my fears into your hands. I surrender my plans, my worries, my doubts. I choose to trust that you are writing my story and I'm ready to live it boldly. Fill me with your peace, your strength, your hope. Use me for your glory. This is your moment of decision. Will you continue to carry the weight of worry, or will you lay it down at the feet of Jesus? Will you step into the freedom that comes from trusting Him completely? The choice is yours, but I urge you, choose faith, choose life, choose the God who loves you enough to write your name in the stars. Friends, let me leave you with this final thought. Worry may whisper, but faith roars. Let your faith roar louder than any fear. Let it echo in your heart, in your home, in your world. Because when you trust God with your story, you'll discover that the best is yet to come. Let me leave you with a truth that will settle deep into your soul. Worry is a silent thief, but faith is a roaring lion. It's time to decide which voice you're going to listen to in 2025. Will it be the quiet whispers of fear telling you that you're on your own? Or will it be the thunderous roar of faith declaring that God is still in control? The choice you make today will shape not just your tomorrow, but your eternity. Think about this for a moment. The same God who spoke light into existence, who parted the Red Sea, who raised Jesus from the dead, that same God is alive and active in your life right now. He hasn't changed. His power hasn't diminished. His love hasn't faded. If He can do all of that, imagine what He can do with the pieces of your story. Imagine how He can take what feels broken and turn it into something breathtaking. But here's the catch. Faith requires action. It's not enough to simply believe in God. We have to live like we trust Him. That means letting go of the need to control every detail. It means stepping out of the boat even when the waves are high. It means choosing to walk forward even when the path isn't clear. Because faith isn't passive, it's a decision to move toward God one step at a time. I want to remind you of something powerful. Your story isn't over. No matter where you find yourself today, whether you're standing on a mountaintop or wandering through a valley, God is still writing. And the best part, you don't have to understand every chapter to trust the author. All you need to know is that He loves you, He sees you, and He's working everything together for your good. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The waves crash against the shore, relentless and wild, but then you notice something lighthouse in the distance. Its beam cuts through the darkness, steady and unwavering. That's what God is in your life. He's the constant in the chaos, the light in the storm. And no matter how fierce the waves get, He will never stop shining for you. Now, I want you to hear this clearly. God doesn't promise an easy journey, but He does promise His presence. He doesn't guarantee smooth roads, but He does guarantee strength for the climb. So when the challenges command, you don't face them alone. You face them with the Creator of the universe by your side. What could possibly stand against you when the Almighty is on your team? As we close, I want to challenge you to do something bold. Take a moment today to write down 3 things you're trusting God for in 2025. Maybe it's healing, provision, restoration, or direction. Write them down and then surrender them to Him. Declare, God, I trust you with these dreams, these hopes, these fears. Watch what happens when you place your faith in motion. And remember this, the enemy wants you to focus on what you lack, but God wants you to focus on what he provides. Shift your gaze, look up instead of down, look ahead instead of behind. When you fix your eyes on Jesus, everything else begins to fall into perspective. The storms may rage, but they cannot drown the hope that lives within you. So as you step into 2025, carry this truth with you. God is still writing your story, and he's not finished yet. Every chapter, every verse, every word is infused with his purpose and his love. Trust him, lean into him, let him lead you into the fullness of the life he's prepared for you. Finally, let me end with this charge. Stand firm in your faith. Don't let doubt or fear steal the promises God has placed over your life. Hold tight to his hand and refuse to let go. Because when you do, you'll discover that the author of your story is also the finisher, and the ending he's crafting for you is more beautiful than anything you could ever imagine. You don't need to have everything figured out to move forward. In fact, some of the greatest moments in life happen when we take steps of faith without seeing the whole staircase. God doesn't call us to perfection. He calls us to partnership. And in that partnership, he reveals himself in ways that defy explanation. Think about the heroes of the Bible for a moment. Abraham left his homeland without knowing where he was going. Moses faced Pharaoh with nothing but a staff and a promise. Esther risked her life for her people, not knowing if she'd survive. None of them had a clear roadmap, but they all had one thing in common. They trusted God enough to act. And because of their faith, God moved mountains on their behalf. What mountains are waiting to be moved in your life? Here's the reality. Life will always have its share of uncertainties. There will always be questions we can't answer, challenges we can't predict, and storms we can't control. But here's the good news. You don't have to navigate any of it alone. The God who holds the universe together is holding you too. His grip is stronger than any force that could ever try to pull you away. So when doubt creeps in, remind yourself of this. If he can sustain galaxies, he can surely sustain you. Now, let me challenge you to do something transformative today. Take a moment to reflect on the areas of your life where you've been holding back, where fear or worry has kept you from stepping fully into God's promises. Maybe it's a dream you've shelved, a relationship you've avoided repairing, or a calling you've been too afraid to pursue. Whatever it is, bring it to God. Lay it at his feet and say, Lord, I trust you with this. I'm ready to step out in faith. And here's what happens when you do. God shows up, not always in the way you expect, but always in the way you need. He meets you in the quiet moments, in the everyday decisions, in the big leaps of faith. He speaks through his word, through prayer, through the encouragement of others, and sometimes even through the stillness of your own heart. When you surrender your fears, you create space for him to move. I want to leave you with an image that I hope stays with you long after today. Picture a potter shaping clay on a wheel. The clay doesn't resist or try to form itself. It simply yields to the hands of the artist. That's what surrender looks like. It's allowing God to mold you, shape you, and refine you into the masterpiece he created you to be. Yes, the process might feel messy and uncomfortable at times, but the end result is worth it. Friends, let me remind you of this truth. God's plans for you are good. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." These aren't empty words, they're a divine promise. A promise that no matter how dark the night feels, the dawn is coming. And when it breaks, it will bring with it a new season of joy, purpose, and fulfillment. But here's the key. You have to position yourself to receive it. You can't sit idle and expect blessings to fall into your lap. Faith requires action. It requires saying yes to God's invitations, even when they stretch you beyond your comfort zone. It requires showing up, staying faithful, and trusting that he will do what he said he would. Are you willing to take that step today? As we wrap up, I want to encourage you to surround yourself with people who will remind you of these truths when you forget. Find a community of believers who will pray with you, cheer for you, and hold you accountable. Faith grows stronger when it's shared. Together, you can remind each other that God is still writing your stories and that the best chapters are yet to come. So as you walk into 2025, carry this promise in your heart. God is not done with you. He's not finished crafting your story, shaping your character, or fulfilling His purposes in your life. Every trial, every triumph, every tear, it's all part of His greater plan. Keep your eyes fixed on Him and watch as He turns your ashes into beauty, your mourning into dancing, and your worries into wonder. Finally, remember this. The story God is writing for you isn't just for you, it's for the world. Your faith, your courage, your trust in Him has the power to inspire others. When you live boldly in the face of fear, you become a living testament to His goodness. So go ahead, live like you believe it. Because when you do, you'll discover that God's story for you is more extraordinary than anything you could have imagined.